Speaker, and I rise to contribute to the Biosecurity Legislation Amendment Incident Response Bill 2023. And Deputy Speaker, as a peri-urban interface council electorate area, I'm acutely aware of the importance of farm biosecurity. And of course, as we work towards safeguarding Victoria's interest in fortifying our resilience in the face of what feels like growing biosecurity risk. And of course, out in my area, we have many food producers, in particular in that Bacchus Marsh area, but there's still a lot of farming district around the Melton electorate. And I'm pleased to say that continues, and the production out that way is very good, and we need to keep it safe. Of course, our biosecurity system is recognised worldwide as being very strong and bringing benefits to our community, and previous speakers have spoken about that. And of course, our unique environment and in our way of life, it's important to keep our biosecurity system safe and free from, infestation and things like that. So we do try to stop as many pests and diseases coming into this country, and hopefully people doing the right thing. And I should declare, even though people won't believe it being such a young bloke, back in the 70s, in the late 70s, I was a quarantine officer at Tullamarine Airport. So I was one of these, just another one of those jobs for me in the late 70s. But I was one of those guys that used to walk down the aisle with the pressure pack cans, spraying the planes as first port aircraft. And primarily it was to kill the bugs that were on the plane. Sometimes it was probably for some of the humans that were on the plane too. But you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked to see what would be brought into this country in first port aircraft. And then, of course, the other role that we had was when people came through the airport terminal, they had to declare anything that they were carrying that could have been of a prohibited reason, a prohibited item. We would check baggies. We would also check their shoes if they'd been on farmland overseas. And if their shoes were dirty, they had to be cleaned in very powerful wash. As I say, you would be shocked to think what people try to bring into this country, whether that be plant material, seeds, animal products, dead animals themselves, and they bring it in for their own particular reasons, whether it's religious reasons, whether they feel that it's something that's going to help them with their health. So it's quite interesting to see what is stopped at all the ports, the airports, and even the shipping areas of what people try and bring into this country. And I just got to say, thank God we're so stringent in what we do to try and stop that coming into the country, because as previous speakers have said, if that got out, into our production, into our food production, into our farming area, it would be devastating for this country. So yeah, I lasted 18 months there and then moved on to becoming a paramedic after that. So I went from insects to other things. Yeah, that's right. So, Anyway, so through this bill, we're clearly ensuring that our government's capability to manage any biosecurity incidents, and including the preparation for responding to and recovering from any exotic animal diseases or plant or pest disease detection or outbreak is reinforced and enhanced. And of course, the essence of the bill is to empower Victoria with a strengthened capability to adeptly manage biosecurity risks. Because our primary goal is to establish a robust and comprehensive legislative framework that safeguards Victoria's valuable agricultural and horticultural sectors and mitigating any potential risk associated with market access and trade disruptions resulting from the detection or outbreak of these threats. Of course, the vulnerability facing Victoria, it's very real, and we've seen, and again in the previous speaker, the Leader of the Nationals spoke about some of the infections in regard to what's affected the bee community and what's happening there, and it's disappointing that it's come into Victoria, and we certainly tried to prevent it, but unfortunately there's always some people that don't do the right things and abide by the current laws and the current practices that keep the states and the nation safe. The Victorian Farmers Federation tell us that Victoria makes up, I think, 25% of the Australian gross value of agriculture, and also it makes up 42% of sheep and lamb meat, and that Victoria is responsible for about 62% of the milk production. So we know how important producing in Victoria is to this, not only this state, but to the nation. And of course, again, it's been referred to in previous contributions, foot and mouth disease, and what happened in England, in the UK, back in the 90s, and foot and mouth disease come into this state or country, the damage that it would do. And we saw, foot and mouth in Indonesia back in May of 2022, and of course it spread across to Bali by July of that year, and then we saw lumpy skin disease both in Indonesia and Singapore, and we saw the things that were put in place. In particular, say somewhere like Bali, where many Australian tourists travel to and from, and the things that had to be put in place to stop the possibility of foot and mouth and lumpy skin disease coming into Australia. So it is important for these biosecurity measures and tightening up on the legislation, and that's what this does here. So the proposed amendments in the bill enhances the functionality of the Livestock Disease Control Act 1994, the Livestock Management Act 2010, and the Plant Biosecurity Act 2010. And their aim is to mitigate disease risk by streamlining a swift and effective response to an incursion of exotic animal diseases or plant pests in Victoria. And of course the amendments improve traceability processes, and they fortify compliance and enforcement mechanism. And it is through these measures that we can bolster our preparedness and response capabilities, ensuring the safeguarding of Victoria against the looming threats posed by those exotic disease. Of course, it'll improve the clarity and efficiency of emergency responding to it, and the management provisions for exotic diseases and pests that have the potential to, as we've said previously, adversely affect the agriculture and horticultural industries, including broader information sharing powers. And of course, we know how important agriculture and horticulture is to this state, but also to this nation, and how many people are employed in those areas of production, food production, and plant production. And as I say, it's not only about the spread of the disease and how it would decimate food production, but it's about the jobs that it would cost also, and also the tragic circumstances if something like foot and mouth come into this state or country, and the death of, the killing of animals, unfortunately, due to that disease. And again, we saw that example in the UK back in the 90s, and as I say, the Leader of the Nationals referred to that issue, and the killing of thousands head of animals in response to it, to try and eradicate the big problem. So recently, and I know I haven't got long to go, but recently AgVic conducted a new initiative, the Great Biosecurity Quest, across Victoria through October, including in Melton. And of course, Deputy Speaker, it was a great success, and encouraging children and families to play their part protecting Victoria's precious environment and agriculture by keeping an eye out for some of the state's highest plant and pest risk. And participants could download or have a printed citizen science toolkit, and they grabbed a magnifying glass or a phone with a zoom, and they got out into their backyard and park or garden and documented what they could find. And it was a great exercise for many in our communities, and I know many people in the Melton electorate took up that exercise, and it was fantastic to see our kids involved in those sorts of things and get a greater understanding of what's around them and what can affect their environment. This is a really important bill, and I'm pleased to say that both sides of the chamber are supporting the bill, and I commend the bill to the House.
The member for Mildura.